So, welcome everyone to Shivali's Books Online. We are LA's oldest indie bookstore, established in 1940. Tonight is a much anticipated event where we will be celebrating Morgan Matson's new novel, Take Me Home Tonight, where two teen best friends decide to have a night out on the town in a city that never sleeps. We have here with us tonight Maurene Goo. Maurene is the author of several acclaimed books for young adults, including I Believe in a Thing Called Love and Somewhere Only We Know. She also writes for Marvel's Silk series. But tonight, she'll be interviewing for us Morgan Matson. Morgan is a New York Times bestselling author. She received her MFA in writing for children from the New School and was named a Publishers Weekly Flying Start author for her first book, Amy and Roger's Epic Detour, which was also recognized as an ALA Top 10 Best Book for Young Adults. Her second book, Second Chance Summer, won the California State Book Award, and have a very strong feeling that Take Me Tonight is going to be just as loved. So without further ado, please give a warm digital welcome to our speakers, Morgan Matson and Maurene Goo. Ladies, please take it away.
Yay, thank you.
And hi, everyone. I'm so excited you're here. This is going to be so fun.
Yeah, I love seeing everybody popping up here.
I know. I saw that the audiobook narrator is one of the audiobook narrators is here. It's so exciting. I haven't heard it yet, but I'm really excited to.
Cool.
Yes.
I know Morgan does look beautiful. She's all dressed up. I'm wearing a ratty holy sweatshirt. I'm sorry.
I just feel I like to dress up on book tour. Like even
no,
like
you should. You look great.
Like I always like to, and the last few book tours I've like decided I'm never gonna like wear the same dress. Like always want to have like it doesn't make any sense, but it's like I really like dressing up. So
there's so few reasons to dress up during this panini, right? So
exactly. We're at Panera. I mean, what are we gonna do? It's a Panasonic, but
Panasonic. Panera bread.
That I matched the cover, which I do, and that wasn't even intended.
Oh
so.
Yeah, you do.
I also love that Maureen has Brad up next to her as like the shot, which is
Brad.
Really happy.
True star of this novel.
He is. We were just saying, Teresa was just saying that when she opened the box of books and she saw this, she was like, oh no, did I order the wrong book? And I was saying that like in a different kind of book, like a palm on the cover and it's called Take Me Home Tonight is about a palm who just wants to get adopted.
I know. Well, I mean, you don't know. Maybe that's what the book is about.
I mean, I really
no spoilers.
The book. This is the book. This is the author of the book. You turned over, and he's doing the back. So that's what it seems like.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love this book.
Thank you. That's so nice of you.
Not just because you're my friend, and I witnessed you write a lot of it.
Maureen was like instrumental to me writing this because we're very close friends, and so I feel like you got like the download every day when I was like so
I mean, I don't feel like I helped you in any way, but I'm glad that your memory thinks that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was because we were both working on stuff during the Panopticon and the whole thing, and so I feel like it, especially when you're quarantined or you're isolated from people, it really helps to be friends with writers. We have a text thread that just kind of goes all day every day, and it was just it made it feel like you weren't so alone because we were just in contact all the time.
Yeah, I think like we would have talked a lot even without the Panera, but like we kind of like we really clung to that text thread, right? Absolutely. I feel like during this whole thing. And so I mean, speaking of that text thread, it is a group of friends that we're like a movie club and we watch a lot of action movies. I mean, it started off as like the Mission Impossible movies we all bonded over, and then it became like, okay, all Tom Cruise movies, and then it kind of became like we call it Tom Cruise adjacent, so like things that are like big blockbuster action movies. So we've like included how come I can't think of the revenge Keanu Reeves movies?
Oh, the Wicks, John Wicks.
John Wick. Yeah, John Wicks. We've done Fast and Furious, Hobbs and Shaw. But anyways, I'm bringing that up because I feel like Take Me Home Tonight, not just because of the Terry interstitials, but like it has an action movie spirit, and for YA. And I don't know if it's just because I know you so well and because I kind of knew your process of writing this book, but it felt like there was so much, and you were so influenced by a lot of these 90s action movies that we've been like consuming like crazy for the past few years.
Yes. Which is a weird thing to talk about when you're talking about your YA novel. It's like inspired by 90s action thrillers. And also, I mean, there are like also a lot of kind of 80s comedies like Adventures in Babysitting. And I feel like there used to be a lot of kind of like One Crazy Night kind of movies. And I do feel like that was a big inspiration. It also, I think that because it all takes place, it really takes place over 12 hours, basically. It's like, and then there's like a little bit at the end that jumps ahead a little bit, and then there's some the next morning. So it's like 12 hours for the main story and then like little bits. But like, I think when you have a compressed timeline like that, like it starts to take on kind of like a movie-ish feel almost, because you can almost be in real time. And when you're reading it, and it lends itself to that kind of urgency, which is a lot of fun, because some of my books have taken place over whole summers, and they get kind of languid, which I like, because I feel like that's what summers feel like, when you're just like, you have these long days and you're hanging out and like you're at the beach or with your friends, and I kind of want the books to feel like that. But for this one, I really wanted it to be like really fast and fast paced. And that's what my editor and I kind of were going back and forth on, because my books are long. I write long books. They're all very long. And
just a little long.
They're a little bit long. And he kept being like, let's get them into the city. Go, 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 get on the train. And it was just and I wanted to, but I also felt like I really needed to establish everything that was happening in Connecticut first, because I feel like I don't like those movies or books where it's like the thing starts and you're like, wait, who are these people? Like, I don't even know who they are. Like, I really kind of wanted to.
And I feel like that's like a weird like writing advice people give you, like start your book or your story at the latest possible second and drop people in. And I get that, but I think with books we have a lot more room for setting things up. Readers like to, and especially your books, I think people really like living in your world and like being with the characters, being in Stanwich, like being cozy. And they kind of, I don't think they would mind that slow. But I remember your first chapter, I'm like, God, this first chapter is like 25 pages long with this tiny font. And I'm like, they literally, it was an Aaron Sorkin episode.
Oh my
God. They literally like started from like leaving one classroom and like you're just walking down the hallway going through.
I didn't even think about that.
It's a walk and talk the whole first. Okay, before we get too deep into
it. I didn't even realize that, Mo.
In case there are people that haven't read this or aren't familiar, do you want to do like a quick pitch of the book so people know what we're talking about?
Sure. So Take Me Home Tonight is about two seniors in high school, best friends, Kat and Stevie. They are theater kids. They're polar opposites. And they decide to leave their Connecticut town and take the train into New York City for what they think is going to be a kind of normal night. They're going to see a play, maybe have dinner, nothing too crazy. Of course, they're barely off the train in Grand Central before everything starts to go wrong. Suddenly they're dealing with past relationships, family problems, irascible cab drivers, unexpected Pomeranians, and no phones. And so over the course of this one wild night in the city that never sleeps, Kat and Stevie are both going to kind of have a wake-up call about themselves, their friendships, what they want for their future. But by the end of this crazy night, they'll have come closer together and closer to the true versions of themselves. That is, if they can make it back to Grand Central before the clock strikes midnight.
Back to Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Yay!
Gotta get back.
I love this book. It was so fun, and it was so I don't know. It was also I knew it was going to be fun, right? You talked about it, and I already know like, oh, this is going to be a wild ride. But I was really actually surprised by how heartfelt it was, or how it got me in a certain emotional, vulnerable place. I didn't think. Yeah, no, it was so great. And it's interesting though. You and I, we talk a lot about the state of YA and what do YA readers like actually want to read lately. We're not sure we know anymore. But what I really love about your books and what I loved about this book is that you actually really write teenage problems.
Oh, thank
you. It's not just which I'm guilty of, like throwing like adult storylines into a teen setting, right? I really do feel like your stories hinge on the real problems and the real emotions and the little things that you remember when you're a teenager, and how all the small things felt so huge. That's what I loved about these two, because it was like all these things like, I lost my phone. Oh no, we've
Yeah.
never been to New York for the,
Yeah.
by ourselves. And it's so like, as a whatever, 30 something year
Mhm.
olds, we're like, whatever. But for teens, those are really big moments.
Well, and also it's that thing of like, it seems so big and it's some of it isn't, but some of it is. Like you get to, here's the thing, I think we talked about this. I think it's bananas that we let 17-year-olds like decide on their own. Like my parents were like, wherever you want to go to college. And like, in retrospect, like I shouldn't have been making that decision by myself. Like I didn't know anything. I was 17. Like, and it's just everything is kind of so fraught and you're making these big decisions that can impact your entire life. And so it's both the little things that seem so big that actually aren't, but also you are making these big life decisions. And I find that like cuspy kind of moment, like senior year is so fraught because you're like trying to get into school, you're preparing to leave your home and leave your family sometimes for the first time and say goodbye to your friends. And but you're also like feeling the pressure to like have the best year ever and like all this stuff
Yeah.
and keep your grades up. And I don't know, did you feel that way your senior year? Were you like feeling the
I
pressure? I
was,
did not feel the pressure. I like let my grades like completely go. I don't know what I was thinking.
yeah, I think senior year I kind of chilled out because, junior year was like the killer year where you took like sorry to speak on behalf of us nerds, you took every AP class. I was in SAT school because I was so bad at SATs. I had to take it like 2-3 times. I don't even
So
remember.
much. That really
Ugh,
surprised me.
I'm really very average with the test taking. And so I was just stressed out and also trying to cram in all the.
Yeah.
So senior year, once applications were sent
Once
in,
they're
I
in.
was like,
Yeah.
But yeah, I end up writing seniors a lot too. And I'm like,
It's a good
why?
point
Because you
moment.
always have to keep track of like applications
Yeah.
and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God, especially if you write like a fall book or a winter book.
You'll notice
But yeah, that is a great year.
You'll notice they're in school for about 5 seconds and then they get out of school. And this was like the most school I've ever written. Like there's a reason all my books take place in the summer or like over a weekend.
I know
and
we've talked about this. You don't like having it be in school.
I got
It's not fun.
about it. I got so stressed about having to be in school. I want to talk to you about your one-day book because Maurene wrote an amazing one-day book called Somewhere Only We Know, which is one of my very favorite. I think it's my favorite book of yours. Like, I don't know if we've talked about this, but I do think it is. It's amazing. It's like Roman holiday with a K-pop star set in Hong Kong. And how long is it? Is it it's the night and then into the next day?
Yeah, it's kind of like the night into the next day. And then like I kind of jump forward in time. So it's not like a little bit of a cheat, but most of it is over the course of like one day-ish. Yeah.
So good. I love it
thanks.
so much. How did you find writing a one-day book?
There's like pros and cons. I'm sure you felt the same way. The pro is that you're like always aware of like exactly what has to happen next. Like, and you don't have to worry about like, should I gloss over this week? Kind of like how much detail am I supposed to put in? And in a one-day book, every detail should probably go in there, especially.
What I really liked about it.
Yeah, because for me, I had to have 2 people fall in love, like realistically over the course of a day. So I got to show all of the conversations and all the moments. But what I didn't love about it is that, yeah, you're like, this is how realistic is it that this is going to happen over the course of a day? Like, how much change can they go through? I was thinking about that reading your book because I'm like, oh, I feel what the character arcs are going to be. How am I going to get there? Plus, you have to cram in hijinks, but you did it. It was so, I was so attached to these girls. And what I really loved actually was how you started the book with Kat only, her POV. And I remember thinking like, oh, I thought Morgan said this was like a 2 POV book. So I of course I flip through and I'm like, oh, it happens, but like, when does it happen and why?
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, thanks. That's nice. You can get a copy of my book. But yeah, I really love that. So actually, this is one of my questions I wrote down. So what made you decide to flip from just Kat to both Stevie and Kat?
So this is something that I had in my brain. And sometimes you have these things that are like MFA kind of intellectually things and you're like, I'm not sure if it's actually going to work, but it's like I like the concept of
idea
it.
of it.
Yeah, because I really liked the idea of you start this book. Oh, spoilers for people who haven't read the book yet. There's 2 perspectives.
Oh,
It's not a
I think you do that when do you do that? Like at the 100 and something
Yeah, it's like
page
100
point?
pages in. So I
Yeah.
like the idea of like you would start reading this book, and because I always do single narrators, that you would think like, oh, it's a Morgan Matson book, and like here I am reading it, and it would seem like normal. And basically, there's a moment where Kat and Stevie have like a giant fight, and they get separated. And then right after they get separated, the next chapter is the first one that says Stevie. And I kind of liked it because there's like something I learned about in college called form and content, where it's like what's happening matches the structure of the thing. Um, and so I always try and do that. And so I was like, oh, that can sort of work for Stevie, that she has so been in Kat's shadow a little bit that the second, it's not until Kat like goes away that suddenly she finds her own voice again, both like metaphorically and
I
literally
love that.
on the page.
I really like that.
But I wasn't sure it was going to work. And like my editor and I did talk about it. We were like, maybe Stevie should get her perspective from the beginning, because it gets hard. There's like a scene where they're debating going into the city or not. And I knew what Stevie was thinking, but Kat didn't. So it was like, it almost like she didn't get her perspective in there. So it was one of those things, but I actually really like it because I do feel like it feels like suddenly it's like Kat's gone and suddenly you hear from Stevie, and it's like that's their relationship in miniature a little bit, that like she gets talked over a lot. And so yeah, but it's actually kind of weird thing that happens. Like
I loved it for a lot of reasons. Well, one, it's just kind of like fun, like, ooh, like there's a twist. Stevie's here. But then two, I relate to Kat, right? I am more like Kat than Stevie in a lot of ways. I find people like Stevie really hard, right? Because I'm like, what are you thinking? And why is everything all secrets? You know, like when people are like secrets, I get very mad at
Tell
them.
me what you
I'm
think.
Like, yeah, just tell me, like, and why are you being all, why are you making that face? Like, why are you hesitating? It's so frustrating. So it was really satisfying to then like, oh, finally we get to figure out what's going on with Stevie and these like step siblings of hers, and her acting and her ex-boyfriend, like so many secrets.
I know.
So it is very gratifying. Then you're in her headspace. But I actually also thought, you know, you're in Kat's head for 100 something pages, and I'm like, oh, do I want to be like, I've got attached to Kat, and I, you know, but then I actually really ended up loving Stevie's journey and her voice. I ended up relating to her weirdly enough more than Kat. I mean, not that it's like I have to relate to one or the other, but it surprised me because I thought, oh, Stevie's like the introverted one, blah blah blah, or not introverted even,
but just she's more
private. I love Stevie. I super related to her. Aw, Emily, since you've been gone, it's felt like my high school self.
More Maurenes. There's so many Maurenes here.
I know. I'm like, oh, hi, Maurene Graham, who's also really nice and saying that she liked Somewhere Only We Know.
But yeah, I feel
we have to stick together.
I'm thinking if you've ever written a character like that, I feel like some of your characters tend. I mean, Lucky is a little bit like that. Like she I feel like keeps herself at a distance.
Right, but she's a K-pop star, so she has to be kind of private. She's like got this public persona that she has to protect all the time. But yeah, it's very unnatural for me to write a private person. I'm like, I don't know.
I think it's hard to write that character. But I think it's an important character to write. Like, that's what I loved about Lucky, is it's almost like she hasn't let herself feel these feelings until now, because it's like she's been on this like train and she's been successful, and it's like she's not, this is the first moment she actually stops and is like, wait, do I actually want this? Like, am I happy?
Right.
And that's what I think is such a, because I think so many people are like that they're just like going about their day and they're not stopping to kind of be internal. Originally, I feel like you know about this, in the first two drafts Stevie had footnotes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I guess we have I liked the idea that like visually you would open a page and you would know whose perspective we were in right away, just by looking at like what it looked like on the page. And I was kind of doing the footnotes as a way that she wasn't even being truthful on the page in her narration. She was only being truthful in the footnotes. Like she'd be like, it's fine. And then there would be a footnote and be like, it's not fine. It was kind of like the narrator in Arrested Development. Yeah. And my editor was like, no, like, please stop doing this. Like, basically it's like such a literary device that he was kind of getting like, wait, is she writing? Like, what's happening? And then there's the whole weird Terry plot line. And he was like, it's too many things. And I was actually glad that we took it out because it was a lot.
Yeah,
going on.
sometimes you're like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
I do have to streamline things a little bit. Although, yeah, footnotes, sometimes I love them. They're done really well, and sometimes I feel they're like super literary
I know.
dude,
I know.
right?
No, it is.
But I
I
feel
know.
like for
I
you,
feel like
if you did it, it would be fun,
I know. And I
It
feel like
wouldn't be
he was also
pretentious.
he was like footnotes coming in with one perspective 150 pages into the book. Like, this doesn't make any fucking sense.
Everyone's like, what's happening? And that's like, okay, that's not to say we're not even talking about Terry yet. Meanwhile, in Connecticut.
Which is the secret. If you have the book and you open up the jacket, there's the second
Sarah's coming in. Sarah's the biggest Terry stan.
there's a second book underneath
This
the
is
cover.
amazing. Okay,
It's
first
so
of
great.
all, when Morgan showed this to me early on, when she knew she was going to have this done for her book, I got like a gut punch of like, I'm jealous. What a cool thing that she gets to have in her book.
What I can't believe is that I get this author photo.
Yes, that photo. Amazing. It's bigger than, is it big as Brad's photo?
It's bigger than Brad's because I think it covers the whole thing. And
Brad gets a frame. Brad gets a frame.
But it's such a cool jacket design. But yeah, I feel like so there's a plot line with their friend Terry, who's back home in Connecticut, who has a kind of crazy plot line. Or does she? Like, I'm not saying anything, no spoilers.
Yeah.
And I think what you were talking about, like with the hijinks versus the like emotional stakes of the girls, like basically I kept wanting to write these crazy hijinks in the book with Kat and Stevie. And then I was like, no, like this is about a girl and her dad. Like this is about a girl like getting closer to her step siblings. This is about Kat like meeting this guy and like starting to question the theater department. So like, because I was like, oh, they were like in the Met and they take the wrong jacket and suddenly they're being chased by the mafia. And I was like, that's not this book.
I was kind of waiting for moments like that. And I was like, oh, okay, phew, okay.
But I kept wanting, like, it was my instinct from all these movies, like to like throw that in there. And so basically when I was like, oh, that can happen to their friend back home, like the one who's supposed to be having like the quiet night, like, and that sort of let me like pay homage to like that kind of movie, like kind of plot and like have the crazy hijinks, but with keeping like the girls in New York a little bit more grounded and the emotional stakes there.
I think you and I are similar in that like we love hijinks and we have very cinematic storytelling. I mean, I don't know, instincts, right?
I can see your books. Like when I read them, I see them. Like I'm in the food truck, like I'm running around the streets of Hong Kong.
I felt that way about this book. I felt like, during a pandemic, I got to be in New York, I was like, oh, Grace Papaya, I just want like one of those drinks. But also,
oh my God, those drinks are so good. The tropical drinks. Oh man. But did you find that when you were writing a one-day book, like balancing like what happens, the actions versus like the emotional stakes?
Well, I was going to say, I really relate to that because I think that you and I we're when we brainstorm stuff, we get really wild, right? And especially when we talk about movies. But when you write books, all of those like concepts, like you have to tone it down by like 80%.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized, because it's fun to pitch things that way, or to like even like write an outline with a lot of those kind of like high stakes and like extreme things happening. And you've got to push people so that they become like your characters have to feel what's the word? I always use it and now I'm forgetting, but they're like these not tropes, but the character archetypes. They're archetypes, right? So you have to push things to create this archetype, and then when you like are working on the actual book, you gotta like pull back, because when you read a book, you don't actually want to be that, unless you're reading like a thriller or what have you. Totally. Even then, I actually think like movies are pushing that stuff way more than the books.
Well, and
but especially in YA novels, you kind of have to like go get into the characters' heads, and you have to have a little more
you have
emotional
to believe people. Like I feel like even with like Lucky and Jack, it's like you have to believe these are like people first before the like crazy stuff all gets started, like so that you're like on board with them. And that's what I think like movies can do. Like when you have an actor's face and you're like seeing into their eyes, like the actor brings so much of that, and I feel like on the page, like you need to provide that. But yeah, I do think like you want to be on a journey with these people, and you want to be as rooted with them like as possible. And that was really the struggle is, and I feel like a little bit that with Somewhere Only We Know too, is like you have to like establish her in her world, like before the crazy, like you have to have the first beat so that, you know who they are before the kind of adventure gets started.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's so cliche to start with her at her concert, but we have
No.
to start with her at her concert,
Well,
right?
and I
And
think
see how
that's
crazy
really
her life is.
because it's like, and I feel like it's like so good. It's like all about her boots are hurting her, right? Isn't that what's happening?
Oh,
Like she's in the
yeah.
concert and it's like her like feet are killing
That
her.
actually Stevie too. Her feet hurting the whole. I was so low key stressed. I'm like, oh my god, just take off your shoes. Like, please just go buy a pair of flip flops in the drugstore. Like, I was so stressed for her shoes.
But like, have you had that in New York or any big city, like where suddenly
Yes.
your shoes turn on you and it's like the worst feeling in the world because it's like you need to fix it somehow, and it's like every moment that you're not fixing it, it's getting worse and worse and worse.
Well, it actually happened to me, like Stevie. I was cutting through the Central Park to get to the Guggenheim in new shoes.
Oh no.
Which is like such a California dumbo move. You know, I'm like, I'm gonna wear new shoes. Well, I'm gonna walk the whole day in New York City. And by the way, the Guggenheim was closed.
No, was it Monday?
Whatever day, they have the most random closed day. It's not the day that you think it is.
No.
Yeah. But anyways, I want to go back to your book because I have so many questions. First of all, there's so much theater stuff in this book because both of Kat and Stevie and Terry somewhat are theater kids. And a lot of their kind of internal conflict has to do with like their place in their theater department and what theater means to them as students and possibly for their careers and their future. So I want everybody to know your theater cred.
Oh man.
I mean, I kind of know, but
you never did any theater, right? You were not, that was not your jam.
Oh my God, no, I would have rather died. When she talks about theater and how fun it is, I'm like, nightmare sounds like a nightmare, sounds like a nightmare.
So yes, it's funny because I feel like there've been little like hints that I was a theater kid in all my books, like in Amy and Roger, she's an actor, and Second Chance Summer, there's these like screenwriter neighbors, and in Since You've Been Gone, her parents are playwrights, and in Unexpected Everything, one member of their friends, Tom, is an actor, and so I feel like there've been like little like hints throughout, and it took me 6 books to finally like reckon with the fact, like finally like deal with my like theater.
Exactly. Let it all out.
Exactly. So I was a total theater kid. I did ballet like all through elementary and middle school, and then when I got to high school, much like Kat, this is just like autobiography at this point. I started getting really into my high school's theater department, and it was like my whole life in high school. Like it was, you know, this theater department in this book is very based on my high school theater department, which is like all encompassing. You didn't do anything else. Like you did this and that was it. You didn't have time to do anything else. My parents were always like, this is a crazy commitment. Like this is bananas. But I mean, all your friends were there and everyone was so obsessed with who's getting what part. And like, it was just like your whole world. And it wasn't until like years later that I was like, I don't think that was the healthiest thing. Like, I don't think that was the best, you know, and it's like, it's tricky because I do think in some ways it's like, it was really good. I mean, we all were super disciplined and super focused and super like committed to something. But on the other hand, like you should have been able to be in the play if you wanted to without having to like be doing this all 4 years. And like, you know, it shouldn't have been something that like took over your whole life, I don't think. And so I think you can feel me wrestling with that in this book a little bit. Like, is this good or bad? Like, is this a positive or negative? And but yeah, I was definitely a theater kid. I still love theater. I love seeing it, you know, attending it. And it was really fun to kind of get to dive into that. And it wasn't, I was a theater major in college. That's why I went to school in Los Angeles, because I was auditioning, so I was acting. And, you know, it wasn't until halfway through college that I worked at a bookstore and was like, oh, I like YA and I'm spending all this time writing. Maybe I should think about that a little bit. But yeah, it was really fun to kind of get
What were some of your roles in high school when you're in theater?
Oh gosh. I mean, we did 3 plays a year. So we did like it's like literally
That's
just
crazy.
We did Shakespeare, we did a play, and we did a musical every year. And we did an original works festival, and we did like all Shakespeare competition, all this stuff. But it was interesting. And like, you know, do you ever like look back on your life and like there's like signposts the whole way, you just weren't paying attention? You're just like breezing on past them. And so it was like when I started writing for Original Works Festival and I loved it, and everyone was like, oh, we like this scene, or we like this thing you wrote. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But anyway, I'm going to be an actor. And it was like, it like didn't occur to me that I like loved doing it and I had so much fun. But that was like the first time I really like wrote creatively. But I I could have seen you in theater. It's funny that you were like so opposed to it.
Well, I don't even know if I was opposed to. I mean, I was pretty shy. I was
Mhm.
shyer back then. Now it's like public speaking. We do this for our jobs. I'm
Yeah.
very comfortable with it. But yeah, it would have been so scary for me to be that earnest
Okay.
too publicly. And
You're
no,
like,
I
I
don't
need more
even.
irony.
I wasn't like I wasn't like emo or all
Mhm.
that. I was just like a very normal
Okay.
middle of the road high school kid. But I think, and I couldn't have imagined. I was in journalism. I liked
Mhm.
writing.
Yeah.
I was involved in like student government, blah blah
Yeah. Yeah.
blah. But yeah, theater seemed like, whoa, mama, like I could never imagine doing that.
Well, and it still becomes its own little like world. Like it's like,
It
and
seemed fun
yeah.
because actually journalism was kind of the same for me. I love the night before we put the paper, like
Mhm.
it'd be like we're there till midnight. We
Yeah,
ordered
yeah, yeah.
pizzas. We'd all go a
Totally.
little kooky.
Totally.
Um, and it was like you're all in it together,
Mhm.
But I feel like you probably had the same feeling with theater. And you said something when Kat has that whole like she
Mhm.
has like a few pages of like a
She's a
flashback to
montage. She has like a montage in her
she
brain.
totally has a montage, which I found really touching. But she remembers like the feeling of how you work on this thing
Mhm.
for so long and really hard with a small group of people, and then suddenly you have to show it to everyone, and it's so special because you can like present this thing together that you created with your friends, which I
Yeah.
thought was really sweet.
Well, and I think one of the things that Kat starts to question later on, which is something I should have questioned before I was in college in Los Angeles and auditioning for things, is do you really like this or do you like spending time with your friends in this group?
Right.
And I feel like it can be so hard to like separate those things when you're a teenager because it's
Yeah.
like the experience is the whole experience. And I think sometimes it's hard to be like, do I actually like acting or do I like this like camaraderie and this like family?
Yeah, I think I feel like that was great for you, not just you, but like everyone in high school to have that, like a little something that you get excited about. And people are being really funny. They're like all bringing up their funny things
I
that they're
saw Anna
involved
being
in.
like, where are the marching band moves?
I had a huge crush on the marching band leader guy back in
Oh
the
my God.
day. Newspaper nerds and marching band nerds, production night, prom committee. Prom committee was like a thing that took up like your whole year.
Gosh,
Wild. You must have had a crazy prom. I was a choir kid. Yeah, yeah, yeah. See,
love
oh,
it.
Sarah. She wants a yearbook spread for this chat. That's kind of amazing.
I love it.
But I love that but that's like very Morgan Matson-y. Like you really tap into those specificities of like what was so fun about high school.
Oh, thank
Because
you.
a lot of books are about how high school sucked and how
Mhm.
and I'm sure it did suck for a ton of people.
Yeah.
But for me, high school was not like the
Well,
funnest thing, but
right.
it was fine. And that's where all my friends were.
That's
And
the thing. I feel like this says a lot about our books, Maureen. That like,
yeah,
because I
right.
also had like a really good time in high school. I mean, obviously there were the worst times in my life too, but like for the most part, like I hung out with my friends and we put on plays and like I went to 5 proms because I love the proms so much. Like it
Oh my
just
gosh. Wait, but you went to like senior proms or they had junior proms
we
too?
had 2 because we had such a big school. So we had senior and junior prom.
Yeah,
And
we
so
did too.
yeah. And I would just like connive my way into both proms every year because I liked it so much. Like
Nice.
I would like, but so I feel like, but I think you can tell. I think some of our books have a little bit of that buoyancy where it is the fun with your friends and the pranks and the whatever is happening. Obviously the drama and the emotional stuff as well. But I think both of
Yes.
our books find some of the joy.
Yeah, yeah. I think they do. Even when the people don't love school, I'm like,
Yes.
they're pretty. Everyone's like going wild right now in this chat. It's so funny.
I love it. I love that everyone's just
Oh,
sharing their yearbook pages right now.
I
They're like, I
know.
love
Oh,
this,
your
I love
editor,
this.
your editor Justin was also in theater, so he must have loved
Well,
editing
that was
this
actually
book.
like a really fun thing about working on this with him is that like he was also a theater kid. And so we like really connected on that. And I think at some point he was like, oh gosh, this is like hitting way too close to home in terms of like the feelings you have. And so it was like actually it was because I knew this about him, but it was fun to get to work on this book and then get to sort of
Like
connect.
really nerd out, right?
We totally could. It was great. And he grew up in the tri-state area too, because takes place in Connecticut. When like
Oh, okay.
it's like different in LA because LA, the city is so integrated with the suburbs. Like it's so kind of a
There's
piece.
no like driving into the city.
Like
I mean, you could, and then you're
could,
like, well, there's nothing to do in downtown Los Angeles.
Like, what are you gonna do? It's like not that exciting, but like it's like such a separation of like the suburbs, and you have to take like bridges or you know, tunnels to get into Manhattan, and it's like such a like far off kind of like
I mean, I feel like I really know that because a lot of books that I read growing up in the 80s and 90s movies had that, you know, Adventures in Babysitting, I think was that, right? Like they go
Chicago,
from the
but
suburbs.
it's the same idea.
Oh, Chicago, yeah. They go into the city.
Yeah.
I just remember that scene where they drive by the parents.
Oh my God, I know.
Kids, and then they're like, she's like, how fast do your parents drive? And they're like, 55? Do you remember that?
Like, we'll go 80.
55 on the freeway?
I know.
They just zoom right past them. But okay, I also want to ask you, speaking of the city, have you been to a lot of the places in the book, or all of them?
All of them. And it was one of those things where I thought, now people are just quoting Adventures in Babysitting. And
I know.
I love this thread so much. It's amazing. So I grew up in New York City until we moved to Connecticut. And then I was in a lot when I was in high school. And then after college, I moved there for 4 years and thought I was going to like be living in the city for the foreseeable future. And then LA called me back with Siren Song. But so I've been to all those places, but I thought I was last, before the pandemic, I was there like right in March, right before it happened. And was in Grand Central taking pictures, went up to Columbia. That is the one place I hadn't really been because I hadn't spent a ton of time at Columbia. So I went to Columbia. I went into that dorm, took some pictures. Then
did? You're like, hello, fellow children.
So I was like, click, and then I was like, I'm in the wrong place. And then I left again. But I thought I was going to spend the whole summer going back and because I wanted to, I did a little bit, but I wanted to do more of timing stuff out of how long does it actually take you to walk from here to there? And what would you see on this road? But then everyone got locked down for a year. So I didn't get to do as much of that. But
speaking of the timing, I was stressed out for Kat when her and Carrie were gallivanting, and then he's like, you still have an hour and a half. And I was like, do they really though? I felt like an hour and a half. That was felt like they had an hour and a half 100 pages ago. That
was the hardest part, was figuring out how many times to talk about what time it was, and how stressed would she be, and because it's one of those things you don't think about. If you don't have a watch and you don't have a phone, you have no idea what time it is. And it's you're relying on other people. So that was the I feel in an early draft, it was every 5 seconds, it was what time is it? How much time do we have? What's going on? And we had to pull that back.
Yeah. But that's a first draft thing, because you're I've got to make sure that I don't forget to do this, and then later I can go back and calm down.
But the apartment building that Stevie's dad lives in is the apartment building I grew up in. So
the one next to the Dakota?
Next to the Dakota. And I make that joke where I say when people are like, oh, you grew up in New York City? I'm like, yeah, you know the Dakota? And they're like, wow. And I'm like, not there. Next door.
That reminds me of the Babysitters Club when Lane Cummings lived in the Dakota. Do you remember that?
Stacey's bad news friend from Manhattan.
Yeah. But then Lane totally made up for it. She became cooler later.
There's no real
Sarah Gane is sophisticated. You are sophisticated like Stacey.
It was fun to get to because I was oh, I know what this revolving door looks like. I know what this lobby looks like. I know it was fun to set it there. And I wrote a novella if people pre-ordered the book, and a lot of it takes place in that same apartment building.
It does?
Yeah. So
the Grants go there?
Well, because in the oh no, I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay.
Someone lives there in their family.
Oh, okay.
So.
Ooh, people already read the novella. Look at that.
Justin's quiet. I'm not spoiling anything.
It'll just make people want to read the novella. But wait, that was a pre-order thing, correct?
It was a pre-order thing.
Done. It's already done.
But it was so there's a tiny little Stevie and Kat cameo in the Grant novella, which is getting crazy. And some people already spotted it. But I'm not spoiling anything. Guys. I'm not spoiling anything.
Sarah says, I'm here for the Grant living their best life. Sure, I wonder who it is.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Okay, so let's see. How much time do we have? Okay.
Yes, if you forgot to email me if you pre-ordered the novella, you can still email me at the pre-order thing and send me the thing if you pre-ordered it before the book came out. So you're good.
Okay. Yeah. Is there something you want to talk about that we haven't talked about yet? I have a lot more questions, but I
want to open it up to people because we don't have so much time, and I don't want to. Not that I don't also want to hear your questions.
No, we have 11 Q&A questions here.
Okay, so maybe we should open up those.
Okay.
All right, so we want to get into the Q&A then?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Okay,
That
excellent.
works.
So we, as Maurene mentioned, we already have 11 questions. However, if you want to try and sneak a question in, you still can. Just make sure to drop it into the Q&A box and not the chat. Otherwise, it's probably going to get lost.
Yeah. Everyone's
So
talking about what they did in high school. It's going to get
exactly. So we've got the first question from Anna, who says, out of all of your books, do you have a favorite? And is there one that's nearest and dearest to your heart?
Do you, Mo? Do you have a favorite?
From my books? Yes. It's Desi from I Believe in a Thing Called
Oh my
Love.
gosh, I was not expecting that. You like had it right
Really?
there, locked and ready.
Oh, whenever I think about it, she is the closest.
Is that your favorite book?
No.
Interesting.
My favorite book is The Way You Make Me Feel.
Interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know if I can. I think I can't pick a favorite book. I was about to be like, it's like picking your favorite child, but you only have one child, so it's easier for you, Mo.
Yeah, I only have one, and it's Brad.
I don't really. I feel like it's like for each thing you're working on that like becomes your favorite thing, and I find it hard to like pit them against each other. And I feel like I like different aspects of the different books.
This is a very Morgan Matson answer, to be honest. Right? I don't think you could. No, it's like pick your favorite snack or Tom Cruise movie.
Exactly, it's impossible. But like I feel like I kind of want for the next YA, I'm kind of like that's like buzzing in my head a little bit. I haven't started writing it yet. I haven't even talked to my editor about it. We can do that now. Let's do it now. But I kind of want to like Voltron it. I kind of want to take like my favorite parts of all the different books and like put it into one.
Somewhere Justin's like, ah.
You just said that. It's amazing. So we'll see. This might be brilliant, but I kind of want to do an Avengers thing of like all my favorite parts of the other books and like not characters, but just like aspects and ideas.
Ooh.
Can you tell this is like so nascent and I haven't even written any word down?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Avengers Assemble, yes.
Oh, and someone wants yes. Aha.
We've got a question that you touched upon a little bit from Kristen, who's asking, what was it like writing in multiple POVs? And I also want to add to that, if it was easier for you to write Kat versus Stevie or vice versa.
Have you ever written in multiple POVs, Mo? I'm trying to remember.
Just some Maurene we know.
Yeah. Is Jack and Lucky. Did you find it was hard?
At first, yes. Because I thought,
you had to write a boy too. I think that's.
I had to write a boy, and I was like, I want to make their voices, distinct, and like, but I quickly realized that you can try to do gimmicky things with language, but you kind of just have to write the book and figure out who they are, and then if you know your characters well enough, it kind of comes through in their writing. I felt that way about Stevie. The way Stevie thought and the way she talked, it felt very distinct from Kat. Even though like it's not like you use different language or accents. You know what I mean?
One voice, they all have it.
I know. Same. All my characters have the same voice.
But I did think weirdly the footnotes helped because they were such a different kind of thing. And so then when I started bringing the footnotes back into the way she thought, it was already kind of a little bit.
Yeah, she had a lot more like parenthetical, like.
Exactly. And so I feel like I felt that helped because I felt Kat was like, this is what we're doing. And Stevie's like, I don't know, is this the thing? Should I do this thing? What's going on? And so it helped, I think, for the rhythm of it. What was challenging was the Terry stuff is written in a very different style. It's in third and it's in a sort of very clipped, like airport thriller thing.
Yeah,
and
John
like,
Grisham or
and when it started, or like Jack Reacher or Lee, I was like, Lee Pace, that's not right.
There's so many, they're all like initials and like, I don't know.
I know. And when I started writing that, it felt much more like a Morgan Matson character. And so my editor was really great and we really worked on that of like, nope, like sharp staccato sentences, like quick lines, like just really kind of changed the rhythm. And once I sort of got into that, it was really fun, but it was a struggle at first because I feel like the way you naturally write is just the way you want to write, and anything else kind of feels like doing something with the wrong hand.
Yeah, I try to cheat and have Lucky be third person and then Jack be first.
I remember
but then my editor was like,
I remember this.
Put her in first, and I was like, really stubborn, and
Because
then
you were even
finally,
thinking it was like worked with her character because she is at
yeah,
such a
because
removed. Yeah,
I didn't want her to be accessible
right.
right away. But then she felt it was hard to connect.
Yeah.
And then I was like, fine, and I caved at the very last minute and did first, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah,
This is
it's
better.
like so much better. This is like my jam here,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so we've got a question from another Maurene who says, which TS era are each of the characters in Take Me Home Tonight, especially Kat and Stevie?
ooh,
Oh, Taylor Swift.
Taylor
What
Swift.
Taylor Swift era?
Not Elliot, although we could also talk about T.S. Eliot. That could be like
Elliot.
that's
Yes.
yeah, proof rock. So I think I always associate this book a lot with 1989 because it feels very New York to me, and it feels very, maybe a little bit of Lover too, but definitely not the more recent ones, which are, I feel like, much more like pastoral and woodsy and elegiac and thoughtful. And this, I like the propulsion of those those two albums, and I feel like it fits that. How about you? What about, I'm like trying to think about your books. What about Somewhere Only We, I mean, Somewhere Only We
Morgan,
Know
you're
is
so
like,
nice, always bringing it back to me. It's fine.
no,
I don't
I
think my
wanna
books
know.
are Taylor Swift. Well, the way you make me feel is very Lover to me because of the her Cruel Summer song.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, that's like
Right?
the theme of that book.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's not Cruel Summer.
No,
It's
yeah, Cruel Summer.
okay. Is it Cruel Summer?
Yeah.
Is there another like 80s song called Cruel Summer?
Yes.
Sarah wants me to sing. I don't think so.
Yeah, but it is Cruel Summer. It's not the, you're like making me doubt my Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
but
I know. I
yeah.
shouldn't doubt you.
Yeah.
I was doubting
but there
myself.
is also the is it Bananarama? There's like another song called Cruel Summer. Yeah. Bananarama, yes.
Lisa confirmed. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I suddenly like the Fabric of Reality tour for a second, and I was like, did I get a Taylor Swift wrong? What's happening?
So on a related note, here's a question from Jessica, who says, since you both have used song titles or songs as titles, I'm wondering if music plays a big part in your writing process. Do you have a writing playlist, or do you think about what your characters would listen to?
I would just like to say there's like a tiny little me and Maureen Easter egg in Save the Date. I think it's in the bonus content. I told you this.
Oh, yes.
Like, I think it's in the bonus content when you see one of the playlists. It might be when her brother was the DJ, when DJ JJ was the wedding playlist. And like the last 3 songs are the 3 songs of Maureen's books. So it's I Believe in a Thing Called Love, The Way You Make Me Feel, and Somewhere Only We Know, all in a row. So it's like a little Maurene Goo Easter egg in my book. But yeah, I feel like it's good and bad to have songs named after books, because it's good, I think, because it's fun. But like Lee Bardugo messaged me and she was like, this song has been in my head for the last 3 days.
Too.
It is all your fault.
I can't not hear this song. And actually, when I first started reading your book, I popped up because Morgan makes Spotify playlists for her book. So I was listening to this, and then it was like distracting. So I actually had to turn it off. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't like getting into it. So, but yeah, this is like, that's how I feel about I Believe in a Thing Called Love, which is not as like, it's not as catchy, but I love that song so much. So every time I hear that song,
guitar riff, like as soon as you say that song, I like hear like da 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 da, like I hear it in my head,
and you get excited in the good mood. That's how the song feels too. But the song has the energy of the book.
It does. It's interesting because I feel like since you've been gone, the song doesn't feel like that book in a weird way. Like it's like it's
kind of like a
more
angry
like
breakup song,
kind of. Yeah. But I do feel like this feels like that. And I put little, it was funny because I put little, I think it was on when I talked to Sarah for First Draft, Sarah Ennie, and my episode is up with her, it's on her feed, where I was like, I snuck little bits of the song lyrics into the book. I was like, maybe you didn't spot them. And she was like, yeah, they were pretty obvious. So there's like little like lines in it, like at one point someone like takes the key and turns the engine on, and like, so I feel like it was fun to kind of like sneak that in there. But I also feel like Somewhere Only We Know is an underrated song, and so I like that your book kind of brought it back again.
Yeah, Lily Allen did a cover of it in the past. I'm like recently, it was probably like 10 years ago. because that's just how it feels lately. Yeah, I love that song, but it's not like a hugely popular pop song, but it's a
But I feel like every time I think
song.
about it, I'm like, oh, I love that song. Let's listen to that song. And I feel like
Yeah.
it works so well for that because it can be a little bit under the radar. And I feel like it's kind of the same thing with Take Me Home Tonight. Since You've Been Gone was such a big song that everyone knew what it was.
Yeah.
I feel like both Somewhere Only We Know and Take Me Home Tonight, it's like people are like, maybe they know that song,
Yeah.
like, but it's not necessarily like the most recognizable thing in the world.
Right. Which I think is kind of like a nice balance when you have a song title for a book, so that the book isn't just
exactly
identified with the song.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's true.
Yeah.
So we've got one question that two people have asked separately, Emily and Anu, and it's asking both of you, out of all the characters that you've written, who do you relate to the most?
Oh, I mean, mine is, sorry, it's so obvious. My debut novel, Since You Asked, is very autobiographical. So Holly Kim. As a woman that is no longer 15 years old, I don't relate to her, but I relate to teenage me relates to her. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Kat was very much me in high school, but isn't so much me now, if that makes any sense. And and so it's really funny. I feel like whenever I write characters that are more like me, people are like, she's so annoying. I'm like, I'm like, I know, I was. So
Morgan.
I definitely like literally every time I make someone a little bit like me, everyone hates them.
No, you know what it is though? I'm gonna defend you there. I think it's because you can be really real about it and honest, right? And so which isn't always just the best version of you, which
True.
isn't, you don't have to just be likable all the time. The reality is, if you're writing a good nuanced character, they are very unlikable a lot of the time.
Yep. And I also think like that's important for like a character's journey. Like you want someone to have somewhere to go, and if they're like perfect in the beginning, they have nowhere to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I definitely feel like there's always aspects of you in a character, but Kat is really high school Morgan.
Whoa.
If you know what that was like, that's what that was like. And
well, she's also a dancer, like you were a dancer too.
Exactly. It's just autobiography, guys. Here, we're just.
I really loved. Sorry, tangent. I really loved, and it's not a spoiler, but there's like a scene with dancing that's like really sweet. I loved it. I was also like doing the like pas de bourrée,
exactly.
A pirouette, fifth, yeah.
And like I feel like characters dance a lot in my books. I don't know why. I feel like everyone talks so much that I really like the moment where everyone like gets quiet and like has a dance. So apparently I'm just writing musicals.
Why not?
On a somewhat related note, this is a question from Justin, who's saying, Morgan, do you have a favorite secondary character from all of your books? Someone else that you'd like to send on a Terry-like adventure?
I don't know if this is Justin, my editor, or another Justin.
Justin Chanda?
Yes, that's my editor. Hi, Justin. So do I have enough? Oh, yeah. That's the thing. I love my secondary characters so much, and Justin and I fight about how long the books are and how many subplots there need to be in them. And what I love about writing such big casts is that I feel like at any moment I could be like, oh, now we're in the JJ story, and like off we go with him. And I feel like I like to know everyone well enough that at any moment I could turn the camera to them and it's their movie and we could follow them. I mean, not like the people who have like one line, but like, who would I pick? This is fun. I still deeply love Collins from Since You've Been Gone. And I feel like he had a little bit of his own story and his own stuff going on, but I would sort of love to kind of see him. But JJ Grant is one of my favorite characters I've ever written. And
I want that book.
When I was writing the novella, I kept like being like, okay, like he's not the main character in the story again. So, but I would love to kind of like be like with him in like a day in the life and all the like crazy madcap stuff nonsense he gets into. I feel like either one of those would be a lot of fun. Or I'm kind of fascinated by Sloane. I'm kind of like, what's she up to now? The character from Since You've Been Gone, just because she seems very like mysterious. And either anyone, that's a bad answer. I guess all three of them.
Okay, so we've got a very sweet question from Sarah Rudolph, who says, do you feel that your books have an overall message that connects them, whether intentionally or not? something that you'd like your readers to know or learn from, an overall message that is important in your own life.
Wow.
Do yours have a through line, Mo? I'm trying to think.
I think so. It's something I've discovered recently because now I'm writing comics and I'm writing a movie, and I realize, oh, it always comes back to the same idea. You know, there's lots of ideas and all this stuff, but a really common shared one is the idea of like taking risks and trying in life and being vulnerable as like, and I do think that is something I wish I could have told my younger self, you know, or in my 20s, or a lot of point when you're scared of failure or you're scared of taking risks. I really do think it my big thing about like life is short. Do the things, try the things you want to try, and if you fail, oh well.
Which is so hard when you're a teen, even when you're an adult, like, but especially when you're a teen, everything seems, you haven't failed enough to know that you can get up and it'll be okay. And, you know, some of mine are very similar, which is interesting, which is maybe why I feel like our books get grouped together sometimes. Like, I feel like a lot of my stuff is about, you have a plan and the plan doesn't work out, and it's okay. You need to like figure out a new plan. Like, I feel like a lot of my books are like, there was one summer that was going to happen, and then another thing happened. And so
that's
I feel
because
like,
you are a Virgo.
But I do think a lot of my books are also about characters struggling to be vulnerable. Like, that's Stevie's big thing in this, is that, you know, she is fighting against that. And I feel like that's a big part of Unexpected Everything. And so I feel like it's like those two similar things about like wanting to be open. And I think they're related. It's like needing to be open to a change or a plan, and like needing to be open with people. I think definitely.
Yeah, people for sure is involved, wrapped up in that.
Yeah. But yeah.
Okay, I think we've got maybe time for just 2 more questions. Sorry, everyone, if we don't get to your question. But this is a fun one that I think both of you can answer. It's from Courtney, who asks, who is your favorite love interest that you've ever written?
I know my favorite of yours, Mo.
I know, you love Jack.
I love Jack so much. I love Jack. He's the best. He's the best.
Oh, Adrian, Sarah. He's not a love interest. He was a dad, everybody.
Let's clarify this right here.
Appropriate love interest to the ladies who read the book. I mean, Hamlet.
Oh my gosh.
Gosh, I think I actually really love Hamlet too. He was just so earnest. Hamlet is from The Way You Make Me Feel, and he's very earnest, sweet, but like competent and hot.
Very hot.
Yeah.
And he's like,
I hate saying hot because I'm like, okay, he's 70, but you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I know
you have a teenager.
Exactly.
Yeah, I actually love Clark too. Jessica Clark.
Good. I do say it was like very fun to write Carrie in this, who's the love interest for Kat.
I love him.
He was fun. Someone just wrote Frank. Clark is very special. I really liked Clark a lot too, but Carrie just kind of showed up, and he was kind of very fun. And I feel like Carrie was also inspired a little bit by like listen, because he wants to be an animator and do animated movies, and I feel like that was like very much informed by like hearing from your husband and our friend Derek and all these people who work in animation, and you doing your comics. Like, I feel like I wouldn't have written that character without like our friendship and like hearing all about this. So I feel like that was definitely informed by that.
When Carrie's interested in animation, I'm like, oh, he's a good guy. Yeah, you know, animation guys are, I mean, for the most part.
And I feel like that's sort of like the thing that I've absorbed. But it was really fun to write him. He sort of showed up, and he was who he was, and I was like, oh great, that's easy. Like, here you are. Thanks for popping up. And so I enjoyed writing him a lot.
And he had wonderfully long, beautiful eyelashes.
Oh, my boys always have long eyelashes. They're like,
I know,
freckles. It's like always. Jack is my forever favorite of yours. He's like he's got a little spark to him.
He's like confident. Yeah. And has good hair, which all of my love interests always have really good hair.
Like the cartoon version of Aladdin.
You mean, but Aladdin was a cartoon too.
That's what I mean. That was he
was like, oh, okay, I see. Yeah. I know, he's got that like thick mop of hair.
Like roguish, like he's popping into places he shouldn't be.
Well, he also says, did you catch my Aladdin Easter egg in there? He says to her, like, do you trust me?
Oh my God, amazing.
And she's like, oh God, whatever.
Wait, were you thinking of the cartoon Aladdin when you were writing him?
Yes, when I
Because that's
especially that.
totally what I picked
Well,
up on.
I looked up like
Oh my God, I didn't even know that.
I looked up. I watched Tangled too
Oh my
for
God,
the Huck
Flynn
or
Rider.
whatever his name was.
Flynn Rider.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't realize I felt that
That
strong.
kind of like charming Khan is what I was thinking of with
Charming
Jack.
mood. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got time for one last question.
Okay.
This one is for both of you as well, and it says, what advice can either of you give for aspiring writers who struggle to finish writing their novel?
Oof, that was so me. What was the first book you finished? Was it the one you sold?
Mm-hmm.
And would you write it beforehand, or did you write it after you sold it?
No, I wrote it. I wrote the whole thing, but it was like it was probably like 40,000 words. Not even. Not a Morgan Matson. It's a Morgan Matson novella.
Yeah, kind of, unfortunately. Yeah. It was, I can relate to this because I can start anything and I can write 30 pages of anything and get really excited about it. And I had never finished anything. And it was one of those things where the second things got hard, when you really got into where you had to start making decisions, I would be like, oh, you know what? There's a new shiny idea that's not going to have any of these problems. And so I'm going to write that instead. And my first book, I wrote under a pen name, and basically I sold it on like the concept of it. And so then they were like, here's half your money. And I was like, amazing. And then they were like, if you don't do this, you have to give it back to us. And I was like, but I've spent it. And so like, I like wrote that book because I had to, and I had a deadline. And like, I don't know if I would have been able to do it without those external factors. But I will say, I like vividly remember the night that I knew I was going to finish the book. Like it was clear to me, I only had like 2 more chapters left. I was going to stay up until it was done. And it was so exciting to me because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to finish a book. And it felt like being at the top of the roller coaster, and like you were just going down the roller coaster. And it was like, it was such an important thing to finish it for me, because then I could work on making it better. But
yeah, this
is like a weird circular logic thing, but I knew I could write a book because I'd written a book. And it's like that thing that like you can't get any other way. And it was, I had to finish a book so I knew I could do it again in the future. And so if you are having trouble finishing something, just get to the end, write a crappy draft. It doesn't matter. Like just write it. Our friend Dave Iserson just posted something on Twitter the other day about this, or he posted an article from the New Yorker about a comic writer who talked about this, that he said, writing is really hard, but revising is easier. And so he would write the worst, crappiest drafts of his Simpson scripts. And then the next day he'd be like, oh, look, an elf came in and wrote a crappy version of this. Thanks, elf. And like, then he could revise it. And so I feel like sometimes if you just have something, you can make it better. But like the having is the hard part. What about you? What's your advice?
I truly hate revising. but that means that I'm a really slow drafter, because I try to make
all the work beforehand, basically.
Yeah, I'm like trying to write the first draft really not perfect, but it has to be something that I can move on from and say, okay, that's good. Which I have learned to not do now that I have to write under deadlines. But I would say that probably the question asker is having a hard time finishing it because they don't have a deadline or anything, right? No one's paying you yet. So you need it, like for me,
take away your money. That was it.
Yes, for me. I also need like outside, I need accountability to finish stuff. So I would recommend working with maybe friends who are writers and like promising pages maybe at certain times. For me, that's my personality. If I know people are waiting on something from me, I'm like, oh crap, like that's kind of like the kick in the butt that I need. Yeah, I'm an obliger. So I have to oblige people. That's how I get my own things done. Or, like a writing group, I think it's a great idea, and you can have other people, or like have little dangling carrots. Like for me, I would be like, what draft? I was drafting Somewhere Only We Know, I think, and I'm like, well, if I finish this, I can watch like 2 hours of Supernatural tonight, and I'll feel good about it. I will feel good watching 2 hours instead of feeling crappy because I not only didn't work all day, now I'm just watching Supernatural. So, but also, I mean, practical, like maybe craft advice. When you're stuck, I would just like do a sloppy outline of what you think could happen next. And if you have some sort of guide, it can be easier to like you see the ending, you're like, okay, I have to get there. Fine, we'll figure it out as we go. I don't know, everybody's different, but it's hard. It is hard to finish when you have no outside factors and like motivations, you know?
I would say if you can just like push yourself to the end, I think it'll just be such a big relief and you'll feel so much better about it. And then you can start making it better.
Yeah.
But it's that old phrase is that you can't revise a blank page. And so it's like, if you can just like get it down and get to the end of it, I just think it'll feel so great.
Yeah, the feeling, let me just tell you, the feeling of finishing a book, even if the book isn't good, you're like, it's an incredibly proud feeling because you're like, I did that.
Exactly.
I did that. Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like you can't like overestimate how great that feels. And it's like, even if it's not the right book at all, you wrote a book. It's amazing. And so
yeah,
like, you can just get to the end. I think it'll feel great.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yes. Good luck.
Yes. Good luck. All right. So I think that's going to end our conversation tonight. A big warm thank you to our speakers.
Thank you so much. And I know that you put the link in there. I think you can still order signed personalized copies of Take Me Home Tonight if you want. There's the link again, like magic. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was such a great conversation, and thank you so much for everyone's amazing questions.
I know, and all of your fun comments in this chat here, keeping it lively.
I feel like we got to be in a yearbook meeting. It was so fun.
I know. Bunch of nerds hanging out together.
I love it. And now, Mo, I'm sad we can't like go to In-N-Out because that's what we normally do when we do events together. But
I know. I mean, we could. We live 5 minutes away from each other, and we're both vaccinated.
But thank you so much, Mo, for doing this. This was so fun.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Brad says bye.
Bye, Brad.
Oh,
bye,
no.
everyone.
Bye, Brad.
Have a great rest of your Thursday evening and buy the book. Take care.